good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 8 of More Founding Frameworks. And I'm coming to you a little bit earlier today. I spoke about my son being in hospital about 2 weeks ago, and unfortunately he's still there. Hopefully he'll be coming out in the next day or two, so I've got to get to the hospital to be able to speak to the doctors to see where we go to from here. But last week I spoke to you about the first 3 founding frameworks, which were capture. How are we going to capture the attention of our ideal client? Cultivate. What are we doing from when we capture our ideal client to move them towards signing a contract? So I called that the jazz hands or the Westfield smile framework. And then converting, the process of getting your client basically to shake your hand and sign a contract. So the next 3 founding frameworks that I'm going to be talking about today are construct. So what systems and processes are you using to deliver your custom homes? Cash, which is why we're all doing what we're doing. And cultivate, which is how we're keeping our clients happy so that they refer us further work, not only, I guess, after we've built, but also keep them coming back and probably trying to spend more money with us throughout the build. So I guess the construct component is a major framework with lots of, I guess, intertwining smaller frameworks. And they give the majority of the builders the biggest headaches, I guess, basically this framework. It's designed to be able to help you successfully deliver the client's dream home. So the goal of the framework is to learn about implementing systems and processes that will allow you to have a smooth and stress-free delivery process with your clients. So this is the part that the builders enjoy. They really enjoy, obviously, building. And unfortunately, the building part of it is really only a minor part of the whole big process of building and delivering a client's home. It's not just about the building, but I guess the superpowers of the builders is building. And a lot of builders start their own business because they just want to build houses, but they don't necessarily realize or imagine how much goes into actually building that home. So they just want to do the building, but it's not until really they start that business that they realize how much hard work it actually is and what goes on behind the scenes that is not often, I guess, shown or discussed or educated on when they go through their trade. And if you talk to, I guess, a lot of the older builders, there wasn't as much regulation. They did handshake contract deals. There wasn't as much selection for clients to choose in relation to what they could use to build their homes. And there wasn't as many regulations around building homes. So in Australia, the building code wasn't actually established until 1988, with the National Construction Code coming out in 2011. There was other uniform building regulations which started back in 1965. And I'm sure to some extent there was other contract and regulations prior to that, but it didn't really start until, 1965, but really not until the 1980s. So there's a lot more processes that need to be focused on than just what happens on site. And often the client experience, which I've spoken about before, is not thought about. But this part of it, the building part, is the part where the clients start to see you delivering what they've contracted you to do or what they're paying you for. And this is where the emotion starts to come into it. And if, as you're building, they start things that they think, hang on a minute, that doesn't look like what I imagined it to be, is when those little bits of niggling, emotions start to come in and they start the questioning and what about this and what about that? And if you haven't got the frameworks to deal with that, this is where the stress and the headaches sort of start. So within the framework, there's a lot of paperwork that we need to produce to make sure that everyone is on the same page and that we're all heading in the right direction. And that's things like determining the colours that they've selected. So, when you sign a contract, you might just have provisional sums for carpet, tiles, flooring, tapware. So this is the stage where the client starts to actually sit down and choose and select what they're wanting. And we need to have processes to deal with the variations and how we're actually communicating with the client and at what stages you will have communications with them. So I guess one way I control this process is that we have our own selection center. So we actually have in our office the tiles, the flooring, the cabinetry, specifications, bench tops, and we do that so that we can try and control that client's budget, and we can help them make sure that everything looks well together. You know, you can go and send them to the tile shop, and you can send them to the carpet shop, and you can send them to the cabinet maker. But what usually occurs when that happens is, one, they try and upsell the client, so they usually blow their budget. So then you've got to come back, you've got to get pricing for that again. And then you've also got to, you know, if it is too expensive, once you tell the client that, no, you've gone over your budget on these things, they either decide that they're going to spend the extra money, or they decide they're going to have to reselect. So you go through that whole cycle again. So being able to have some sort of frameworks that you can control, you know, the allowances that you've given them, so that they're not going out and getting their heart set on, you know, a particular tile, which then you have to come back and say, you know, that's not within your budget, they can't afford it. And that's another, it's just all these little things that make them start to have a bad experience. And if you can control that, you know, it does make it a lot easier for you throughout the build. So I had a client, for example, pick a tile. She came into the shop. She said, I've picked my tile, looks fantastic with my bench top. And she didn't have the bench top with her. And so I put it there. I put the bench top on top. And I looked at it and I thought, no, it's not going to work. And I pulled out another sample and I put it down with it. And she looked at me and she went, that looks so much better. I thought I had it right. But I guess we're the experts and we do this all the time. And we need to be able to show our clients that we are the experts, and they need to trust that sometimes that we do know better, even though they don't necessarily think that sometimes. But you've got to be able to have that ability to not question their choices, but in a nice way sort of say to them, what do you think about this? If you think that it's not quite working, because it is your reputation and your homes that are on show when, you know, you build a house and they pick in colours. So often builders sort of have the mindset, it's custom, it's their choice. I'm not going to question them on what they've chosen or how the design is, but you just sort of sometimes got to step back, look at things and go, is this the best decision or the right decision, and then guide them, because they're coming to you for your expert knowledge and your skills. So I had one client that was adamant, you know, in her kitchen, all the drawers had to line up, and the drawer continued along underneath the oven tower. And normally we would have 2 drawers and then the oven. Anyway, she was adamant that no, the drawers had to line up. So that meant there was only 1 drawer. And that made the oven lower than what she probably imagined in her head. And, you know, they always forget these things when you come to site and they think, this is ridiculous, the oven's too low. I didn't want it this low. But when you know, if you've got your paperwork and you've got that system that's got all that paperwork and you write everything down, you can pull that out and say, here it is. You've written in capital letters that this must line up with this thing. And that's what we've done. So often it's, I guess, really hard to get the clients to listen to you, because they're sometimes prepared to listen to every other person down the road, necessarily listening to you. I think my internet is maybe playing up. Hopefully it will stay. It's been a bit funny this morning. So yeah, make sure that you do have the documentation that you can use to back yourself up. So you want to have paperwork that has the detail, because there's unbelievable situations that you just think there's no way that they would ever have not known that. I guess one example was we'd issued a client their practical completion invoice, and it felt like as soon as I'd sent it, she was on my doorstep. And she said, you've sent the final invoice. And I explained, you know, we send the invoice, it's got to go to the bank, the valuer has to come out and look at the house. You know, then we do our final walkthrough, and then you basically advise the bank when you're happy, you know, for that payment to come through. But I could tell that there was something wrong. And I said to her, is there something wrong? And she said, yes, the splashback's wrong. So I said, okay, what's wrong with the splashback? And she said to me, well, it goes right through the kitchen. And I looked at her a bit puzzled and I said, what do you mean it goes right through the kitchen? She goes, well, it goes everywhere, not just behind the cooktop. And I said, well, that's where the splashback goes. It usually goes wherever your kitchen benchtop is to sort of stop spillages and splashing and damaging the back of your wall in your kitchen. She says, oh, well, I know that now. I've spoken to all my friends and they've all told me, of course it all goes there. She said, but you never explained that to me, even though we did have plans that had written on it, you know, splashback across the back of the kitchen, but she hadn't looked at that. So she got a surprise when she went there. And then she said, well, I wouldn't have chose those tiles if I'd known it had gone everywhere. And I said, well, we actually originally had Metaline, which is a seamless product, and you chose the Subway tiles. And she said, no, it was because it had tiles included originally. And I said, well, here, let's have a look, because luckily we have an online system that has a change log. And I showed her, no, she had changed it from the product we originally specified to the Subway tiles. So I assumed she wanted to have the Subway look. And I said to her, look, it's no problem. We can change the splashback, but you will have to pay for that to be changed. So you can see how we think there's absolutely no way that someone doesn't know that the splashback goes right through the kitchen, but we do. And there's also no possible way that we could have even thought that that could be a possibility. So it is really hard. And in that case, it really soured the handover process. They were otherwise a fantastic client prior to that. But then once we actually were there and the house had been cleaned up and everything was nice and tidy, she actually really liked the tiles. So it sort of just has that undue stress that everyone goes through that could be alleviated if we had maybe better processes and systems and better ways of communicating with the client and that client experience. So the construct framework sort of also covers things like, you know, project managing the actual build, coordinating your trades, supplies, and, you know, that understanding of the paperwork that you need to have so that job can be completed, providing certifiers and counsel with the correct documentation, ordering materials. Every now and then I go through emails, text messages, anything that's been written down about anything that the client's questioning, they've got concerns about, we've got disagreements about, and look at basically trying to implement systems so that those things don't happen again. So that brings me on to the next one, which was cash. And this is why we're all usually got our own business. And I explained in episode 5 that it's not necessarily the cash that we crave, but it's the feeling that the cash gives us so that we can do the things that we desire. And I guess we want to have frameworks that cause cash as a rule and not as an exception. And all of the 6 founding frameworks sort of all work within sequential order of each other. And they are designed to give us the ability to be able to make cash as a rule and not an exception. And within that cash framework, there's the obvious metrics, you know, profit and loss statements, balance sheets, cash flow reports. But I have mentioned in previous episodes using methods such as multiple bank accounts to break down monies that you receive. So you've got tax put aside, you've got super put aside, and you've sort of put aside your profit and overhead money so that you're sort of more aware of the money that's yours and the money that actually really is the client's that you need to use to pay for materials along the way. So there's, you know, working out overhead figures and looking at the project's, I guess, budget compared to the actual figures to make sure that you are looking at the unders and overs for each job and consistently looking and seeing, are we over in certain spots all the time, or are we under? Can we, you know, reduce the cost of this type of thing in our quotes, but we need to increase it in this area. So we need to sort of consistently have ways to update pricing. You know, do you know the real cost of your employees? You know, have you sat down and worked out, once you have their hourly rate, their work cover, their super, their holiday, their sick pay, travel allowances, especially if you're doing cost plus and you're charging out carpenters, you know, do you know the true cost of what they're actually costing you? Or are you just sort of going, oh, their wages is $35 an hour, I'm going to charge them out at $45 an hour, but it actually won't cover all those extra costs that you actually do need to pay that employee. And I have spoken about supervisors before and the cost of how much they cost you and, you know, the turnover that needs to cover just their wages. And that doesn't even take into consideration making an actual profit from those supervisors. So, you know, the cash, I guess, module allows you to discover the patterns in cash flow and help to alleviate the feast and famine periods so that you can learn to deal with those situations as your business continues on each year. So there's things like, do you know how much it actually costs to acquire your customers? So if you don't track these figures, you could be unknowingly eating into your profit margins. You know, some of the things that I guess is happening at the moment is the price increases. And we can't really absorb the price increases at the moment in our contingencies that we might have in our jobs. And I know that obviously people have signed contracts and they're probably fixed price contracts, and we can't really do anything about those ones that we're, I guess, locked into at the moment. But are you updating your quoting spreadsheet? I mean, I got an email from our roofing supplier to say that roofing iron, Colorbond roofing iron is going up by 10%. And, you know, there's some products that are going up even more than that. And we don't have contingencies to, I guess, cover a lot of that stuff. And there is talk of, at the moment, builders, you know, it's just going to be a profitless boom. We're not going to actually make any money. We're probably going to get through it with, I guess, what profit and overheads we've allowed. But we need to make sure that, you know, if there is a variation, that we have got the correct pricing and we're not working off older pricing to make sure that we can collect some of that money back. So I guess final framework. Sorry, guys. I don't know what's happening to my internet. Hopefully we're back. So the final founding framework is Cultivate, and that is what are we doing to ensure that clients become our raving fans and that they want to keep giving us money. I've mentioned about acquiring the cost to acquire a customer, and we want to keep that as low as possible. So what that is how much is it costing us to get that initial client in our doors and to sign a contract with us? So how many site visits do you do for free? How many free quotes are you doing? What free advice and phone calls are you doing, and time spent with clients doing sketches that we don't get paid for? And I know there is a big push to get paid for quotes, and many are getting paid for quotes, but there is still costs involved in getting that client to that point. So you're still going to have phone conversations or meetings in your office or site visits before you actually can get them to pay you for a quote. You know, you can't, they're not just going to come in and you just go, you've just got to pay me before I do anything. Like, there's still got to be that interaction, and there's still the marketing costs to get you in that door. So I guess a quote I've heard from Steve Larson is, second money is the best money. And that's talking about, you know, because it does cost you money to get that first client in, but if you can get them to spend more money with you, then that's easier. You don't have to pay that money to acquire them again, and you have less marketing costs to deal with. You can, you know, get them to spend more money with them. And a lot of builders, I guess, you know, they hate variations. Everyone hates variations. I hate variations, but I guess if you can get, I know I added it up one year. I got $250,000 extra in turnover from getting clients to spend more money with us. And yes, it's a pain in the neck. I have to, you know, do quoting for it. I have to do extension of times. I have to reissue paperwork to site. And, you know, you sort of say to the client, they say they want, you know, X, Y, Z done. You say to them, I think it'll be this much. And they think, no, it can never be that much. You price it out, it's that much. Then they don't want that because it's too expensive, you know. So you do spend a lot of time that again, is potentially unpaid for. But if I can add $250,000 of turnover into my business by not having to find another client, that is a lot of costs that we save by not having to find another client, deal with another client, deal with another personality in the business at that time. If you've already got that client and everything's going well and you're getting along well, and that's a lot of people don't tell you when they first come to you how much money they've got. They keep some money in their back pocket. And it's not until they start to know, like, and trust you and see that you are doing what you have told them that you would do, and there's not necessarily any price increases and the project's going well, that all of a sudden this extra money comes out of the woodwork. And if you're not asking the client to spend more money with you and giving the option to spend more money, they're not going to spend more money with you. But if you can get them to spend more money with you, that's one less project that you have to worry about each year. And that does make a bigger profit margin for you. So you might, we do swimming pools, we do landscaping, we do extra decks. We get them obviously but we upsell them into higher valued specifications. So if you're not asking or you're not providing that service, you're missing out on money that's in effect free money. So cultivating a client is, making them happy and making them enjoy what's happening and making them want to spend more money with you and telling other people to come and spend more money with you. And also to, the builder's business model is pretty crap, really, because there's not a lot of option for repeat clients. So usually the repeat clients are them telling someone else to come and spend money with you. But this year we've had 2 clients that have come back to build, and we've got another 2 that are purchased their land, and they're going to be coming and talking to us to do that probably next year now, because of all the issues with, the builder's grant, and they're not in a hurry. So they said they'll just wait till everything dies down and the trade shortage and that. So that will happen later. But if you don't have that client experience worked out and down pat, then, you're not going to get that opportunity to work with those clients again. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. So oh my God, one way is to, make sure that you're doing surveys and finding out from the clients, what are you letting them down in? What is actually, what aren't they happy with in the process? What do you need to improve? Because it often is something really easy that you can fix. But unless you ask the question, you're not going to be able to fix it because you just think everything's fine. So develop those strategies to help turn them into raving fans. And also, you can send them, I call lumpy mail, so gifts in the mail, and have client functions such as Christmas parties so all your clients can get together and, I guess, build that community. So I'm maybe going to wrap it up there today. So sitting in a hospital for 2 weeks has given me a bit of a sore throat. So I'll just quickly touch on the 6 main founding frameworks. So capture, captivate, convert, construct, cash, and cultivate. And they, I guess these build that point of reference for your business to build a solid foundation, like your engineering plans for building a home. And we can use these basically to spotlight where you are in your business and what needs to be tailored to suit where you are in your business at the moment. So like I said, to have a plan that is custom as the homes that you build. So my program that I'll be releasing later in 2021, the Custom Construct Code, will provide you the step-by-step implementable strategies to build the systems and processes that will create cash as a rule and not as an exception, and, giving you the consistent cash flow, not having to pay for expensive supervisors, and have your builder spend less time in the office and more time out on site, not necessarily on the tools, but being able to be out on site and make sure that everything's going to plan and the customer does get that experience, because you're not running around like a chicken with your head cut off. So the program is designed to not just give you what to do strategies, but to give you the how to do it solutions. And until next week, keep powering your business, and I'll see you then.